So today we are going to look at regional broadcasts because, as we know, starting next season with the Apple TV deal, there's going to be no more regional broadcasts in MLS, and that we're going to see kind of something similar to the NFL, where you're going to have specific amount of broadcaster that will broadcast different games, and that again, each team won't assign a regional broadcast. And while that is definitely going to be something different, and that at least the good news about the Apple TV deal, as I mentioned before, with no blackout, and that you won't have some fans that have to struggle to find a way to watch their team without paying for a cable or paying for a subscription. It does lost the charm of the fact that I do enjoy these regional broadcasts, and I do enjoy listening to a lot of these regional broadcasts, and them broadcasting their teams. And some of these regional broadcasts, they've been with the team since day one. So there's some legendary ones that are actually saying goodbye to their audience for the very last time, and it's kind of bittersweet when that of course has happened. But today I thought I'd look at every one of them and kind of just give my reaction in terms of it, because as a person that try to watch as much MLS soccer as possible, I definitely listen to the different regional broadcasts, and I definitely see some that are very good and some that are kind of mediocre. And then of course I've seen some that are just downright bad, and that I at times I just don't want to listen to the broadcast, or if I have a chance I'll just mute it because it's not very good. But we start off with Atlanta United, who use Bally Sports Southeast as their broadcaster. You got Kevin Egan and Mo Adu as the color commentator. I mean, Kevin Egan, he's okay. I mean, there's times where he could be good, and there's times where he's kind of hard to listen. Mo Adu is not that. Mo Adu is probably one of the best color commentator, if not the best color commentator in MLS, and he deserve it in terms of being on the World Cup broadcaster with Fox. And also, every time when I hear Mo Adu on a national televised game on Fox, I definitely would love to watch it, because his insight is very, very, very good, and that, like I said he is probably one of the best color commentator in MLS out of all of them. Then we go to Charlotte FC, which use local television, as as I'll talk about throughout this video. Pretty much half of the team in the league, they use their local TV channel to broadcast game. They don't have like the regional broadcast that we see in other sports does it. So Charlotte, of course, is one of those one. The play-by-play commentator is Eric Kakero, and the color commentator is Loy Sam. Now, originally, I didn't like the play-by-play commentator for Charlotte. I thought at first it kind of sounds a little bit amateur, but I thought he got a little bit better as the season goes along. Loisan, on the other hand, it feels like it not really had much change. In fact, I think Loisan's has kind of got a lot worse as the season goes along, especially near the latter part of the season, where again he just kind of becoming almost like a fan, and almost share his home review and that. And there's even times where he kind of interrupt Erica. Well, when he of course is announcing, which one of the unwritten rule of being a color commentator. Well, it's actually not an unwritten rule, but it's a rule you want to follow, is that you don't want to interrupt a play-by-play announcer just because you want to kind of celebrate and stuff. You got it. I mean, I get it. You're definitely rooting for the team, and you're working for the team, but you don't want to just kind of show that emotion, or just sometimes interrupt the play-by-play commentator. And I thought Lloyd Sam did that a couple of times, especially in the latter part of the season, and during that run that Charlotte FC was trying to make the playoffs. Now for Chicago, they use WGN Sports, and we got Tyler Terrence or Arlo White being the main play-by-play commentator, and the color commentator is Tony Miola. Tyler Terrence, he has come a long way. He used to be the main commentator for a lot of these USL championships, and I think he's definitely an up and coming kind of commentator. I mean, I talked about before with players, they could be an up and coming players and have a lot of good potential, and the same goes with coaches. But that could be said in the broadcasting industry too, and I think Tyler Terrence definitely has that voice of being a very good commentator. I mean, there's times where he's a little he does show some of his homerism and his inexperience, but I think he's for the most part has done very well. Arlo White, I don't really need to say anything. He's one of my favorite commentator, not just in MLS, but probably in the world, because, you know, he's just such a recognizable voice whenever you watch Premier League games in the morning or in the afternoon if you're in the East Coast, which is why it's kind of disappointing that, you know, he doesn't do Premier League game anymore, although, you know, Peter Drury is just as good as Arlo White that replace him in terms of these Premier League games that's on the NBC Sports Network. And it's also kind of weird the fact that now Arlo White, besides commentating for the Fire, he's out commentating Live Golf, which is, I'm kind of interested to see how that, of course, would work out. Never have seen Arlo White commentate a golf kind of or be a golf commentator, but, you know, I want to see, is it going to be a little bit different than when he commentate games, because, like I say, I do like him. He's one of my favorite one. And the same goes with the color commentator, Tony Mayola. You know, I think he's very good. It's kind of weird, the fact that he's with the Chicago Fire, even though he has nothing to do with the Fire, and that I would think that if Tony Mayola was going to get a broadcasting kind of job, I would think it would have been with DC rather than with the Chicago Fire. But hey, what do you know? He landed job, and for the most part, he's done a relatively good job. And that also throughout this video, I'll mention how, you know, with the way that there's still a lot unknown in terms of who exactly Apple TV is going to hire in terms of commentators and color commentators. I'm gonna definitely mention a couple of times in this video of maybe some of these guys are going to be hired onto the team. So I think guys like Maurice Adu or Mo Adu, and maybe even Tony Miola or even Tyler Terrence should be able to be higher on the Apple TV team, and hopefully Arlo White too, even though I'm not sure that's going to be the case. Now, moving on to Columbus, we got Bally Sports Ohio, we got Neil Sika and Jordan Angelini, and, you know, I gotta say, Neil Sika, when things are going right for Columbus, he's definitely very happy. But when things are not going right with Columbus, he sounds like the most miserable commentator I've ever heard. Like, every time, I think, when Columbus are doing badly, and especially with the way that they gave up leads regularly nowadays, yeah, you can definitely see his voice was hurt. And I understand that, you know, giving up leads late is definitely not good. And I also understand, you know, conceding, seeing other team concede goal is not a good fit. Is not easy for commentators to basically say, but at the same time, I mean, yeah, he definitely shown his homerism. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. And Jordan Angeli, for a long time, a lot of people hated her voice. Like, her voice was kind of annoying, and that, you know, it has gotten a little bit better, but I can definitely see there's a lot of people that did not like her voice and the way that she commentate. But, you know, she's still one of the rare women commentator that we have in MLS. In fact, I think it's only one of 3 women commentator that we have in MLS right now. Now, we got DC United next. They use NBC Sports Washington. Dave Johnson is the play commentator, and then the color commentator is Devon McTavish. Dave Johnson is definitely a national treasure in MLS. Like, he is definitely a legend in MLS because he's been with this team since the inception in 1996. And although I know there's some people that don't like the way that Dave Johnson commentating, and especially his famous "it's in the net" kind of call, I do like it. I think every commentator sometimes needs to have like a unique catchphrase, even though I know some might not like it. It's something that I want to see with these broadcasters and with commentators, that maybe they have a unique trademark that they like to use, similar to in baseball too, because in baseball, when you watch a lot of these regional network, and when you watch a lot of these regional broadcasts, they have their special kind of trademark catchphrase that they use for home run, or even for strikeout. Well, mostly for home run, that is, because I think every commentator in baseball have their signature kind of call when it comes to home run. But yeah, for Dave Johnson, he has that signature moment whenever DC score it go. He basically said it's in the net multiple times. Now, in terms of Devon McTavish, he's okay. I mean, there's times where he could show his homerism, and there's times where, you know, I kind of question in terms of what was he thinking in terms of inside, but he's okay. He's kind of like right around the middle of the park in terms of being a color commentator here in MLS. Now we move to FC Cincinnati, who also used local television. You got Tom Gilliter and Kevin McCluskey as the color commentator. I'm not really a big fan of Tom Gallagher and his commentary style. I mean, the way that he kind of sometimes he stretched out the way that he pronounced the name of the player and the way that he kind of say things. It just makes me wonder. That doesn't sound good. It kind of sounds annoying at times. And the same goes with Kevin McCluskey, which there's a couple of times where he definitely shows some homerism, and that some of the insight that he provide are just like, wait, what? Well, what? That's kind of confusing. But yeah, I mean, the FC Cincinnati broadcast isn't really one of my favorite one, and you could say that if I was gonna do a ranking, they would definitely be right near the bottom or the bottom two in terms of regional broadcast that I really like or I really don't like. Now, moving to Inter Miami, who also use local TV, we got Andre Cardano or Chris Whittingham as the play-by-play commentator, and then the color commentator is Ray Hudson. Now, obviously, Dre Cardano, he's like the main play-by-play commentator for CBS Sports, and he also does a lot of the Champions League games nowadays. Before he was actually the main commentator for BN Sports, but now it seems like he's now with CBS Sport, and he could be another guy that I think could maybe be part of the Apple TV deal. Though there could be a sense that maybe he'll just stick with CBS Sports and he'll commentate there. I really like Dre Cardano. I like his commentary style that he does. Chris Whittingham, of course, one of the main commentator for the Twitter stream. Now, as much as I have slated the Twitter commentator for a long time, I think Chris Whittingham is one of the better one. Though I will say that one of the things I don't like about Chris Whittingham, and I'm starting to notice, especially down the stretch of these Twitter streams, he keep making some golf impression. Like, where in the world did he all of a sudden decide to make so many golf impression? Like, this is soccer. We're not watching golf right now. Though for the most part, when he is commentating Inter Miami games, I don't think he made those golf those kind of golf impression or golf kind of analogy. But again, it's kind of weird that of course is the case. But overall, I think he's probably the best one, which is setting a pretty low bar considered most Twitter commentators are absolutely horrendous. And then of course you got the color commentator Ray Hudson. I mean, well, what can you say about Ray Hudson that hasn't been said? He is definitely one of the best and one of the most likable color commentator that any fans has had. I mean, I will say that at first when I hear Ray Hudson commentate game, and he's another guy that does commentate BN Sports game, and also now I think he commentate CBS Sports game and kind of Champions League kind of games. Or actually, I'm sorry, I keep saying CBS Sports. I'm talking about Paramount. That it is. I mean, it's owned by CBS Sports, but you probably know what I was talking about. I mean, at first, like I said, with Ray Hudson, I didn't really like the way that he kind of sounds. He sounds more of a fan, but as the time goes on, he kind of grow on me, and I really love the analogy that he basically used. Like sometimes when I see commentator, they try to use analogies, and some of them kind of just fell flat. But Ray Hudson, he comes up with some of the most crazy as analogies that it works most of the time. So yeah, I really like him, and I'm pretty sure majority of people can agree that Ray Hudson is literally a national treasure and a guy that let's just hope he might be back as part of the Apple TV deal. Now we move on to Montreal, who use TSN1 and TV Sports. Now the thing about Montreal, and for this season, I noticed that a lot of Montreal home game, they don't even have the home broadcast, which is kind of interesting. I mean, they always have like the away broadcast whenever Montreal play at home or on the road. So there's not a lot of time I get to hear Vic Rauter or Greg Sutton as the color commentator, but I have heard them before. And for Vic Rauter, he's definitely kind of a national treasure in terms of the curling community in Canada, because he's pretty much the voice of curling in Canada. But in terms of soccer, yeah, it just does not work. Like I don't really like the way that he commentate in these Montreal game, and even in some of the games that he commentate for Toronto FC. Greg Sutton, though, I think he's a good color commentator. Definitely one of the better one that we had in terms of MLS. But yeah, the most part for their main commentary, Big Brother, it just again I just don't like the sound or the style that he used. It just doesn't look very. It doesn't sound like somebody that has commentating the way that they commentating the sports. And I'll give him a pass in the way that he usually only commentate curling, and that commentating curling compared to commentating soccer is a complete different thing. Now, we move to New England, who also use local TV. We got Brad Philman and Charlie Davies as the broadcast team, and I hate to say this, but I think New England is probably one of my most hated broadcast team that I have in MLS. I don't like Brad Philman. There's times where he can sound very, very boring, and there's times that he clearly sounds very Homer. The same goes with Charlie Davies. I mean, I think if you look at all these color commentator, I would say Charlie Davies is probably top 3 in terms of my most hated color commentator. I mean, it just, first of all, he sound like a fan. Like, he sound like a fan that is basically the color commentating. He just doesn't show any professionalism whatsoever, and that, again, it's not right. It doesn't feel professional with the way that he sounds kind of like a fan, and also just the amount of homerism that he have shown is just incredibly crazy. And also the fact that he also is one of the person that of course is on the instant replay show with Andrew Wiebe. And the reason why I don't watch the instant replay show anymore is that the host and the person he's with, which is Charlie Davies, they do a terrible job at it. I really want Simon Borg back in terms of the replay show. I mean, for those of you who don't know who Simon Borg is, yeah, you probably didn't watch the instant replay show back in like the 2016 or the 2017 when he was the staple of the show. And even though there's time, I think Borg at times kind of get some of the call wrong and maybe be a little bit harsh, especially with the way that it seems like he always call like yellow a foul that is it doesn't seem like anything, but he said, oh, that's going to be a red card because it's persistent infringement. At least it's much better than the current instant replay crew right now. That is, yeah, it's tough to watch. But going back to this, like I said, I feel bad for New England fans because that they're these two guys that's broadcasting their games is probably one of the worst one, and there's multiple times where I don't even watch the New England TV feed because of that. Now, with NYCFC, you got the Yes Network because, of course, NYCFC is owned by the Yankees. You got Joe Torelson and Ian Joyce. I do like Joe Torelson. He's definitely a guy that's been around for a very long time, and he usually do national televised game, I believe, with ESPN back in the early 2000s. Now, Ian Joy, he's interesting, I would say. And I think he is kind of another one of those guys that he's kind of a bit... it's kind of I'm kind of like at times like the way that he commentates, because he show a lot of energy, which is something that I think I do like whenever a broadcaster or even a color commentator show that energy and show that passion in terms of the game. But then there's times where it just gets weird, and I think probably one of the weirdest this moment in terms of the Yes Network on the NYCFC broadcast team was, I believe last year there was like one moment where as they were about to start the second half, and you know how the commentator usually have their thoughts and stuff, Ian Joy basically decided to go full WWE and basically decided to go with a WWE kind of rant to talk about the team. And then yeah, I mean that was just strange. And I get Ian Joy is one of the commentator for WWE and stuff like that, but again, that just it just sounds weird, and it just sounds like wait, am I watching a soccer game or am I watching a WWE event that is about to happen? But other than that, I think he's pretty good in terms of insight, but it's just his personality. There's times where I like his energy, but then there's time where I'm like, man, just take it down a level or two. You don't have to always show like so much energy. Now, moving on, we got the New York Red Bulls, who of course use MSG as their broadcast team. You got Steve Caganosi and Chip Messing. Now, Steve Nosey is one of the play-by-play commentator for the New Jersey Devils. So there's times where when I see hockey commentator basically commentates soccer game, you definitely do hear some of these hockey term, and that's kind of the case with how Steve Nosey kind of the way that he basically commentate the game and the style that he used for the play. And for the most part, I don't think that's a big problem because again, there's not really much difference if you're a hockey commentator compared to a soccer commentator. It's just that if you're gonna be a hockey commentator and then you're also commentating soccer, don't say that there is gonna be a breakaway or an ongoing rush. Then if you're a hockey audience, you understand what they're talking about. But if you're a soccer audience, I'm like, wait, what the heck is an ongoing, or what the heck is a rush, and what the heck is, like, we were so used to the phrase like breakaway and or he's clean on goal, or he's through on goal. We don't really that, but for the most part, Steve honestly doesn't use that term. And again, I think he's pretty good. That cannot be said about Chip Messing. I mean, Chip Messing is one of those ones that, you talk about homerism and guys that maybe gets a little bit too homer in terms of talking about their team and sharing insight. Chip Messing basically does that, and at times the way that he commentate also sounds kind of weird too, and kind of almost sounds like a fan. And again, you get what I'm trying. You start to see the pattern where I tend to, in terms of commentators, I want them to be professional. I don't want them to kind of act like just a fan that's just kind of shouting some things. And there's times where Chip Messing has done that. Now, moving to Orlando, we got Evan Weston, Miguel Gallardo, and Gabriela Amado. And I think the Orlando broadcasts are pretty good. Evan Weston, I think he's one of the better play-by-play commentator, and the same goes with Miguel Gallardo and Gabriel Amado. I think they're very, very good in terms of sharing some insight, and they don't show that homerism that you sometimes see with regional broadcast and color commentator. Now, moving to the next one, we got the Philadelphia Union, who also use local TV. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention Orlando City also use local TV. Now, for the Union, they of course have the legend JP Delacamera. I gotta pronounce his name correct because he is definitely a legend in terms of the soccer community in America, and that there's a reason why I think he's now kind of even in the Hall of Fame right now, because JP Delacamera has been doing soccer since I think in the 70s, and since when the league was first founded. Now, when he's not on assignment, you got Dave Leno there, and then of course the color commentator is Danny Higginbotham. Now, I think the Union broadcast is probably one of the best one, and again, if I would have done a ranking, it would have been at my upper tier of being one of the best one, because like I said, I don't need to say much about JP Delacamera of how much of a legend that he is. Now when he's not commentating, when Dave Leno commentate, I think he's also pretty good too. Now obviously Dave Leno is nowhere near in terms of what JP Delacamera is when in the way that he commentates, but he's a good backup play-by-play commentator in case JP Delacamera is not there. In terms of Danny Higginbotham, he is a huge upgrade to the last color commentator, which I think it was Tommy Smith that was the last one. And I didn't really like Tommy Smith because at times he kind of sounds very homer, and that some of his insight kind of sounds weird. That's not the case for Danny Higginbotham. He's probably one of the best, if not the best color commentator. His insight on the game is just top level, and he is also another guy that I really hope that Apple TV will pick him up, because again, the amount of insight that he put, and the amount of analysis that he put in the game is just absolutely stunning. So yeah, I think I really hope that I can see him be a color commentator for Apple TV. But now we move on to Toronto FC, and we have them being on the TSN network. Them along with Vancouver are found in the TSN network. And the reason why I said TSN network is that sometimes TFC game can be on TSN 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now the main commentator for TFC is Luke Wellman, followed by Stephen Caldwell. Now I mentioned both of these pairing a lot because they're two of my the one that I know the most. Luke Wellman is definitely one of my favorite. I like the way that he commentates in games. Now Stephen Caldwell, though, again, he sometimes become a little bit too much of a homer, and then there's also times where I mentioned it before in reviews where I just don't know what the heck is he talking about. But for the most part, I think he's okay. He does an okay job for a almost kind of like a national televised game in Canada, because I know TSN is one of the national televised network in Canada. But again, that's kind of my thoughts on that and that. Yeah, moving on now to looking at the Western Conference, because we now gone over the Eastern Conference broadcast team. In the West, we got Austin FC, who also use local TV. We got Adrian Healy and Michael Lahoud as the color commentator. Now, I mentioned before, Adrian Healy is one of my favorite play-by-play commentator, because during his time when he was the voice of those ESPN game that is or those MLS game on ESPN before, now the main team is Taylor Twelveman and John Champion. But the thing about Adrian Healy, like, I don't know what happened this season in a way where he just sounds very homer alongside with Michael Lahoud. Like, there's times where he like during his time with ESPN and on the national television, he doesn't even sound like that. But here he just at times sounds very homer and sounds very unprofessional. I can never forget that moment in that game. I forgot what was the game it is, but they literally spent 10 minutes ranting on a specific play. I'm like, look, I get it, you're mad. I get it, you're angry that this call didn't go your way, but you shouldn't be spending 10 minutes ranting about it. I think now that I think about it, I think it was like a handball that wasn't given, and they were absolutely outraged for about 10 minutes. And while that was kind of hilarious to see them kind of rant at the time, I also thought that was just unprofessional. Like, come on, stop, just move on from it. There's other things to talk about throughout the game. Just don't always just focus on a single play like what they were doing for like 10 minutes. Like, if they talk about it for maybe a minute or two, that should be fine. But for 10 full minutes, I mean, that's way too long. And for Michael Lahoud, he's okay. There's times where him along with Adrian Healy, he definitely share his biased kind of viewpoint. But again, it's kind of surprising to say that one of my favorite commentator in MLS, Adrian Healy, is now, if I do a ranking, he's actually would be below one of the bottom one, because again, I just don't know what happened. Like, he's a guy that is just such an enjoyable commentator to listen during his time with ESPN to broadcast national televised game, and now ever since he was with Austin, he just sound nothing like the character or the personality that he does, and that he's just become a super homer with Austin and the FC nowadays that he's commentating with the team. Now we got Colorado Rapids now, who use Altitude as their main broadcast network. You got Richard Fleming and Marcelo Balboa, and I would say that this pairing sometimes could be good to listen, but there's also times where, especially when nothing is happening, they just kind of sound boring at times. They kind of just talk about random things, and I get it. There's gonna be some stretch of the game it can get boring, but it just feels like it's kind of weird, the fact that they just talk about random thing. But for the most part, I do like Richard Fleming and the way that he commentated, and the same goes with Marcelo Balboa. He's one of the color commentators for 2DN, but he's, even though he sometimes do Spanish language, he also does a good job on the English language part and share the analysis in some of these games. But again, there's times where if the Rapids are not doing well, or if this is like a slow game, the pairing just sounds very boring to hear at times. Now for FC Dallas, they also use local TV. We got Mark Followill and Owen Newkirk with Steve Davis. I think FC Dallas this pairing is probably one of the more underrated one. I think Mark Followill is probably one of the more underrated commentators play-by-play commentator in MLS because I really like the style that he does. And even when he's not on with his replacement Owen Newkirk, like Newkirk, I will say that he does sound a little bit boring at times. He doesn't sound as energetic as Mark Followill does, and you now also get the pattern that I do like an energetic kind of commentator. But yeah, I think it's very this pairing is very underrated, and that there's times that I do really enjoy listening to this pairing. Now with the Houston Dynamo, we got AT&T Sportsnet Southwest as their main commentator. We got Glenn Davis and Eddie Robinson as the pairing. Glenn Davis, I don't know what to kind of make of Glenn Davis. There's times where, again, I think he's a very good commentator, and that he was also one of the commentator for Fox back in the 2018 World Cup. But then there's times where I just don't like the way sometimes he commentates, and sometimes he can be energetic, sometimes he can be. The same goes with Eddie Robinson, where again he's kind of another one that I said before, I don't really like commentator that kind of sounds like being a fan of a team instead of maybe acting a little bit more professional. That goes the same with Eddie Robinson, because sometimes he kind of act like he's just a fan of the team, and he's kind of watching the game as a fan and doesn't really show that much professionalism, actually talk about the inside of the game. Which, speaking of which, the insight that he basically put out, man, some of them doesn't really make sense whatsoever. So yeah, Houston, I don't think they're one of the best pairing, and that again, they're another network that if I would have done a ranking, they'll be right near the bottom two. Then we go to the LA Galaxy, which use Spectrum Sportsnet. You got Joe Tatino and Kobe Jones. Now, Joe Tatino is definitely a legend in the Galaxy broadcast team. He is one of those guys that's been with the team since its inception in 1996. Though I will say that I'm not really a big fan of Joe Tatino, and that again, he kind of sounds more like a hockey broadcaster than a soccer commentator. Like every time someone scored, he basically said, "Oh, he scores," and stuff like that. I'm like, that's something that they say in hockey, but not in soccer. But for the most part, I think he's okay, despite the fact that he used kind of a lot of those hockey terms, and it just makes me wonder, has he ever been a hockey broadcaster? Because I look him up, and I don't think he's ever been a broadcaster for hockey. But in terms of Kobe Jones, I like Kobe Jones. I think he's definitely an up and coming color commentator, and I think he's also now on the Fox Sports World Cup broadcaster team, and he deserved it too, because like I said, him alongside with Mo Adu, two former players that has gone into the booth, and they actually have done a really good job during that times. Now we go to LAFC, which also use local TV. We got the play-by-play commentator being Max Britos. Now LAFC is the only team that I'm going to say varies in terms of the color commentator, because they have so many different color commentators throughout their time when LAFC game is on Richo Network. I will say that recently they've been putting Jordan Harvey as the color commentator, and I think Jordan Harvey, again, another guy that is just a former player and our transition into the booth. I think he's definitely they could be a good color commentator, and especially some of the insight and some of the analysis that he talks about is very good. That cannot be said about Max Britos. Max Britos is probably one of my most hated play-by-play commentator, and I think a lot of people can agree with it, especially with the way that the whole signature goal kind of call where he say like yes in a drag kind of way. I mean, it just does not sound professional when I see him commentate game. And what sucks is that whenever he sometimes even commentate national TV game, and it's just like, oh god, I can't believe Max Britos is calling, because I know how bad he is in terms of a commentator, and that in some way he kind of reminds me a little bit of those Twitter commentator when they, and you probably know what my opinions is toward those Twitter commentator. Now, from one of my most hated play-by-play commentator to probably my favorite play-by-play commentator, and I know this might sound biased because I'm a Loons fan, but Cal Williams and Kendra D. St. Alban is probably, in my opinion, the best pairing in MLS right now. And speaking of Minnesota, they use Bally Sports North, and Cal Williams. I think a lot of people can agree that he has a future to be a voice a great voice in the play-by-play commentary. In fact, he's now commentating more games, not just Minnesota United games, but also games that is the Copa Libertadores and even some of those friendly games during the summer. And I think he was like the main commentator for that El Clasico friendly at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, and he deserved those assignments because again, it's hard to believe that he's only in his mid-30s, even though when you listen to his voice, it sounds like he's a commentator that is in his 50s and in his 60s. But again, I really love his voice, and I really love the way that he maintaining the game, and he also doesn't show that bias and homerism that I've seen some play-by-play commentator does. Now, in terms of Kendra D. St. Albans, I think she's gotten a lot better in these past couple of years. Before, when the Loons came into the league, and when you have Cal Williams and Kendra D. St. Albans as the pairing, I didn't really particularly like Kendra D. St. Albans because I feel like she kind of got a little bit nervous at time, and also she a lot of people say her voice kind of doesn't sound that good, but as the year goes along, I think he has definitely got much more comfortable, and that he also shares some very good insight, and also doesn't show that homerism that I think maybe in the first couple of years she definitely does that. But either way, I'm gonna really miss this pairing. I mean, it was announced a couple of months ago that they will not be back commentating Minnesota United games, and that's kind of the case with a lot of these commentators not commentating games anymore for their team. But I'm really hoping eventually both of them will get a chance on Apple TV. Like, if there is a pairing that I really hope that they would have, or at least one of them being with on Apple TV, it would definitely be both of these. Though I have heard that there's a report saying that it seems like Kendra D. St. Albans is going to stay with the team, and he's going to I'm not sure if he's going to be staying with the broadcasting team or something like that behind the scenes. That goes the same with Cal Williams too. We'll see whether or not if he's going to be staying with the team. And I mean, he does do radio broadcasts too, so maybe he'll be the main broadcaster for the radio side. Which, if that's the case, I better look up where Minnesota United does their radio broadcast, because I would love to hear that broadcast. Now, moving on, we got Nashville SC, which use local TV. You got Tony Husband and Jamie Watson. Now, Tony Husband, I don't really like the way that he commentated. Like, he just sounds too boring and sounds very uninspiring. And especially when a goal that is scored, he just sounds very enthusiastic. Like, when I get it sometimes when a goal is scored, you want to stay professional. You don't want to go too much in terms of seeing your team score a goal. But at the same time, you don't want to sound kind of like enthusiastic or just sounds very boring. And that's kind of the case with Tony Husband. Like, every time, I swear, when Nashville score a goal, even when it's an amazing goal or a last minute goal, Tony Husband doesn't even sound like he's very excited about that. Now, that could be the opposite with Jamie Watson. I really like Jamie Watson. I really miss him doing his time when he was part of the Minnesota United broadcast. And in fact, when I remember earlier this season when the Loons did play for Madison in the U.S. Open Cup, they actually had Cal Williams and Jamie Watson as the pairing for the broadcast. And I'll tell you what, I definitely want to watch that broadcast at least 10 more times, because I really miss that pairing. And I can understand why maybe Jamie Watson wants to move on, because he was the sideline reporter, and that he wants a bigger role in the color commentator spot. And I think he's definitely doing his time with Nashville SC. But yeah, it's great to hear him now being the color commentator, and does an excellent job in terms of the insight, and also doesn't show that homerism that you see some color commentator does. And that, again, he's another guy that I'm hoping he could be brought in as one of the color commentators for Apple TV. Now, we go on to the Portland Timbers, which use Root Sports Northwest. You got Jake Zivins, Ross Smith, and Liam Ridgewell. Now, this is also a broadcast I've mentioned a lot of time, and I'm the most familiar. And the reason why that's the case is they're one of my favorite ones. Like, Jake Zivin is definitely one of my favorite play-by-play commentator. He definitely shows that energy when he broadcasts game. And I've also said before that I love when play-by-play commentators show that energy and show that passion in terms of commentating game, and that's exactly what Jake Zivin have done, and especially with the way that he's actually now giving multiple national televised kind of games too. Now in terms of Ross Smith and Liam Richwill, Ross Smith at first I didn't really like him, but I think I've got he's started to be much better in these past couple of years. The same goes with Liam Richwill, recent addition, though. I think Liam Richwill, he's another guy that, looking at all these color commentators that used to be player or well-known player that transitioned into the booth, he's another guy joining both Kobe Jones and Mo Adu as guys that I can see they have a future in the broadcast booth and could have some potential to be a great color commentator. So yeah, I think they're, like I said, the Timbers probably have one of the best regional network crew that you've seen compared to most of these teams. Now moving on, we got RSL who of course use local TV. We got David James and Brian Dunson, and again, this crew, I feel like they're very underrated too, because I do like the style that David James does in terms of his play-by-play, and then Brian Dunson. I mean, there's times where I do sometimes disagree with what he says and some of his insight, but for the most part he does a good job in terms of talk about the game. And that the only thing I will say about Brian Dixon that maybe I also don't like is sometimes he can go a little bit too homer with RSL, but for the most part, especially on national televised game where sometimes he's done an excellent job in terms of doing it. Now, moving on to the San Jose Earthquakes, they of course use NBC Sports Bay Area or California. The main play-by-play commentator is Anthony Passarelli, and then the color commentator is Chris Dangerfield and Daniel Shelton. Now, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I do not like the Quakes broadcasting team, especially when Passarelli and Dangerfield is the pairing, because for Anthony Passarelli, there's times where he doesn't even know the opposition team's name, and there's even times where he kind of mistaken his own team player too. And when you're a commentator, that's kind of your main job. You want to make sure you know each of these players, and especially the opposition too. And then also the trademark goal call that he has, it does not sound good. It sounds very very generic, and that I really don't like it. And then for Chris Dangerfield, I forgot to mention Danielle Slayton is also one of the color commentator for the Quakes. Now, for Chris Dangerfield, again, I just don't like the way that he commentate, because there's times where he's shown that homerism, and then there's times where I just don't know what he's talking about. Like some of the insight are just kind of very contradicting and very confusing. And also, not to mention, I have met him before, and there's times where I'm like, wait, he's the guy that is the color commentator, because what he's saying sounds very strange. Now, that cannot be the opposite with Danielle Slayton. She's one of the best color commentator in the league, and there's a case where she started to get more assignment, especially as a sideline reporter, and there could be a case that she will be picked up by Apple TV too, or at least with the Fox network. Again, the insight that she puts in, it's much more insightful, and the analysis is much more better. And also, she doesn't show that homerism that maybe Chris Dangerfield sometimes show. But again, for the most part, I don't like listening to the Quakes announce team, because again, they just don't sound good. It's getting to a point where sometimes I even just watch the other team announcer, because of how sometimes I found it annoying listening to the Quakes announce team. Now, we got the Seattle Sounders, who of course use local TV, but they also use Amazon Prime. You got Keith Costigan and Casey Keller and Steve Zurikinen. Now, for Keith Costigan, he's definitely a recognizable voice. He's a guy that has commentated a lot of national televised game on Fox, and even commentated a lot of CCL games. And I have a feeling he's definitely going to be one guy that could be picked up on Apple TV, or at least in the Fox network, and I do like the way that he commentates. I think he's definitely one of the better commentator in the league and one of the better national televised commentator. That cannot be said about Casey Keller. Yeah, Casey Keller is probably one of the most hated color commentator in the league, and I've heard a lot of people hated the way that he commentate. And I think the reason why is because one, his voice sounds boring, and two, he's very negative toward everything. Like he always have a very pessimistic kind of viewpoint, and it just feels like, man, why is he always being so negative? Like why does he always sound so miserable when he trying to talk about either his team or the opposition. Now Steve Zurkhaneli, he's pretty good too. I think he's actually a much better color commentator than what Casey Keller is. I mean, I think everybody's gonna agree that of course is the case. But overall, I think the Sounders have a good crew, but just minus Casey Keller because of the way not a lot of people really like him. Now, for Sporting KC, you got Nate McCarthy and Jacob Peterson, and that they're also on one of the team that use local TV. They're kind of average. I think they're kind of average, and they're kind of a team that if things doesn't go right, sometimes they sounds kind of boring and sounds kind of mad about. But for the most part, they're okay. They're kind of like right in the middle of the road. But finally, we go to the Vancouver Whitecaps, who of course have Blake Price and Paul Dolan as their commentator, though at times it could be Luke Wellman and Stephen Colville calling Vancouver Whitecaps game, depending on how TSN decide to assign their teams in terms of commentating games too. But for the most part, for Blake Price, I think he's done a great job replacing Peter Shad. I think when Peter Shad of course was fired for the Whitecaps, I was kind of disappointed because I do like Peter Shad. He's one of my favorite play-by-play commentator. So when Blake Price comes in, at first I didn't like him, and maybe this is because of me just kind of too attached with Peter Shad calling games for the Whitecaps. But as the time goes along, he actually has gone really, really good. He's actually done a really good job in terms of calling games, and the same goes with Paul Dolan, one of my favorite color commentator, and being very professional, with the way that he talks about the Whitecaps and talks about the game itself. But yeah, overall, I think it's a very good. The Whitecaps has a very good broadcast team. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all of these broadcast teams? And let me know in the comments below, should I maybe make another video just kind of ranking these broadcast teams? Because like I said, this is probably the last time I'm going to mention these teams now that most, if not all of them, will be pretty much disappearing after Apple TV is going to be in place next year. And that, again, also let me know in the comments below which are these commentators that you really want to see that is part of the Apple TV broadcasting teams that they're going to have next year. Because again, there's still so much question that is regarding in terms of the Apple TV broadcasting team, and that I'm just hoping eventually they will hire maybe some of the guys that have worked with like these local broadcasts or work with regional broadcast team that already know a lot about their team, or at least somewhat in terms of MLS level, and they can hire them and not just hire some random guys to basically broadcasting game on Apple TV, because that's one of the things that a lot of fans are kind of concerning about that. Especially, we're already seeing how Apple TV basically broadcasts like baseball games on Friday, and they have like the Friday night baseball one, and how that is just absolutely terrible in terms of the commentators being very amateurish and stuff like that. And that is something I don't want to see in MLS, because like I said, when I look at all these local television, while some of them are not good, some of them are considered they're the best that I've heard, and that I really enjoy listening to them, and that I don't want to go to a part where if Apple TV commentator is going to be sound like Twitter commentators, yeah, this is not going to go well with a lot of fans, and it's not going to go well with the way that, if you want to improve the league popularity, I mean, well, the way to improve the league popularity is that you want to have a good production, and you especially want to have a very good broadcast crew in terms of commentating games. And if Apple TV basically does not do that, then that could be a problem. But we'll see how that's going to work out. But like I said, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all of these regional broadcaster. And again, if you want me to do a follow-up video ranking each of these regional broadcast team. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.